Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Put that coffee down.
I'm a British nanny. I'm dangerous.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
That was totally wicked!
It is the Al Travis Show. We'd love having him on the program. He is Representative Walter Hudson. Representative, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Getting really close to session starting. It's probably going to be a wild one.
Probably. I thought the start of the last one was the craziest session of all time. From not starting for 3 weeks, getting the Supreme Court to come in and tell you what an actual caucus. It was totally crazy. This is going to be off the charts. I want to ask you this, and maybe it's a softball. People hate me for this. How much does how coordinated are the media with candidates? And here's my point. Senator Klobuchar evidently did not show up for the February 4th, which was last Wednesday, the fraud committee meeting. She's the head of the big committee, but the subcommittee's having a meeting with, I think, Representative Kristen Robbins was there. Klobuchar didn't show up. And then you see, and I wouldn't have known she was on there. I guess don't pay that much of it like other people. She doesn't show up. And that becomes the meme. I find out she didn't show up because, wait a minute, Senator Klobuchar, running for governor of Minnesota, isn't even coming to the fraud committee meeting at the Senate. And then the story today is all of a sudden the Star Trib, how great Senator Klobuchar is on fraud. It was just unbelievable. You won't believe how great she is. And when you read the story, it doesn't really kind of work out for Klobuchar that well. I found it hard to believe that this is the story the Star Trib ran with what we saw last week. Your thoughts? Are they that coordinated or just dumb luck?
Well, listen, I don't know to what degree there's actual coordination or sort of like, conversations happening that determine what the headlines are going to be. But there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the Star Tribune as an institution is aligned with certainly the ideology of the Democrat Party, if not the political priorities of the Democrat Party. I mean, we see that in terms of I'm actually kind of throwing together one of my videos today, and potentially one of the topics I'm going to tackle is that the most effective lies in our public discourse are not false statements. It's true statements taken completely out of context, right? So I haven't read that article, but I imagine there's a lot of stuff in there that they say that's probably true outside of the context of all the other things that would leave you with a more accurate impression of what's actually going on.
I will share what I got out of it, because I did read this thing. First off, the people they talked to seem to be tight with her. Fine. People who know Klobuchar. For the most part, they talked how she quietly worked in the background on stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're the U.S. Senator for the state when embroiled in fraud, I would think you'd stand on the top of the hilltops and say, hey, I want this. But that's not it. She was secretly, quietly working in the background. The paper even mentioned they found very few social media posts about fraud at all. And this is the pro-Senator Klobuchar piece. And the one that got me, that they proved she was against fraud. This is the story they found from Senator Klobuchar. She was a prosecutor at one time. She put several airline pilots in court for filing taxes in other states, did not pay Minnesota income taxes.
Wow.
Well, that's not the fraud we're talking. Not that that's good. I'm not giving these guys a pass, but that's the fraud we're talking about. People stealing massive millions of dollars from us, and that's the Star Trib story today. That was my point. It's like you couldn't even find anything.
Well, and I mean, you just stated my case perfectly, right? Like she did do that. I have no doubt, but the context that's missing is how does that connect in any way to the billions of dollars of ongoing fraud related to Medicaid waiver programs that have been allowed to occur under the Walz administration with almost no oversight whatsoever. Programs that were designed to be abused in order to turn benefits into a business. So this is the thing I'm talking about, is that you throw out there, oh, she did this, she did that, and they were nice, happy little things. Great. What does that have to do with the systemic ongoing fraud taking place in the state that she's had nothing to say about and can't even show up to a hearing to discuss?
See, does the Star Tribune, when they decide they're going to write that fluff piece on how great she is on fraud, do they even read it themselves and say, we have two friends saying she works quietly in the background and she went after two pilots for not, registering in South Dakota so they don't have to pay income tax. This is the extent of it? Do they not read that and understand that that's just really weak?
Well, and that's why it's hard to give them the benefit of any doubt, because either they just don't care about whether or not they're giving a false impression, or they actually lack the knowledge and capacity to understand that what they're reporting there has nothing whatsoever to do with the fraud problem in Minnesota.
Well, it's kind of things like, I don't remember the guy's name, I have to look it up, but the guy who came out as the fraud guy now that Walz nominated in December and created an entire organization, he's going to be this guy. KSTP on Friday came out and said, we've been trying to interview this guy. He won't talk to us. We can't get to it. NPR comes out today. A preliminary analysis from this Optum group of Minnesota's Medicaid payout found that direct policy violations may have cost the state $52 million. Bit of a caveat, the $52 million figure does not imply fraud occurred. This is us just not following our own rules. The report also said Minnesota could save up to $1.7 billion if it closed those gaps in our policies. We're now looking at $1.7 billion, not in fraud in Minnesota, in the idea that our policies just aren't followed well enough. How do we survive this? People will get lost, and this one will get lost. 1.7 million is going out the door because of our policies not being strong enough. Doesn't include people trying to steal from us.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I told the House Oversight Committee in D.C. when I went to testify earlier this month, or last month actually now, that this problem goes well beyond acts of criminal fraud. The problem is we have a system that's set up in such a way that even if you follow every jot and tittle of the law, you still are incentivized to waste. You're still incentivized to abuse the system, to turn the system into something that the public does not perceive it to be. Like, the public thinks that we're helping people. We're not. We're setting up a way for folks to have business ongoing indefinitely that just grows and grows and grows and gets hungrier and hungrier and hungrier, because the incentive is there for people to build the state. How else do you get in our fraud committee hearing in December, the DHS coming to us and saying, yeah, we're going to have to pause taking applications for adult daycares because we've determined that we don't have the capacity. In other words, we don't have the customers who need this service to justify all these applications. Well, why the hell are people putting in applications then? Like, where's the incentive that's making them do that if there's nobody for them to serve? I mean, these are pretty obvious red flags.
Yeah, the one that got me is, and I guess it was just in December, but they were talking about the fact that they stopped all this stuff, and it was one of these committee meetings, I'm going to forget the guy's name, but he asked the commissioner, said, how many of the 100,000 applications you had go through so far have you deferred to the inspector general to take a look at? And they said none. They're going to walk before they crawl, before they run or something, right. And it's like... Yeah. You're kidding me. I mean, we're sitting in this. This should be all hands on deck, review this program, see if and then send it on. How can you go through 100,000 and not find one that you're... Maybe that's it.
And why did we need a third party to come in to find out this information regarding the 1.7 billion and, $57 million this and whatever they're claiming? We've got thousands of people who work for the state. Okay.
Yeah.
Why didn't any of them figure it out? You got the Office of Legislative Auditor, nonpartisan, that's been telling the administration for years exactly what Optum just found out. So great. So we paid Optum to tell us what the Office of Legislative Auditor has been telling us for years. Yeah. So what are you going to do about it now?
See, and that's going to be the issue, because Governor Walz is not running now because he has to stay home and fix this problem. Since he decided not to run, can you name one thing that we've seen that is going to fix this problem? Has he come up with one thing?
No.
Okay.
Because it can't be one thing, right? The problem is the structure of these programs. That's the problem. Like they have to be demolished and rebuilt from the ground up. And in fact, in some cases, I was talking to a group of legitimate housing providers this past week, folks who are from reputable companies that you would actually recognize that provide legitimate services above board, who are saying, it would be great if all this money that was being given away with zero oversight to housing stabilization services had just been invested in what they're doing, because they're actually helping people. The solutions could be something that simple. Look at what already works and invest in that, rather than coming up with these novel ways to empower people to put together nonprofits to serve their community-based nonsense. That's the buzz phrase. It's a code word for funneling money to politically favored constituencies. That's all it is. So they can't change it, because they'd be ticking off their own people who are the reason why they win elections.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk with you, if we can, about Minnesota paid family leave. When you get there next Tuesday, when you get there next Tuesday, will we have preliminary numbers? You have a fraud committee now. Here's what bothers me about this. I think the paid family leave program is written so openly that everything counts. Can't tell who's your mother, who's your father, who you can look after, how many people can look after them, what do you got to do to look after them. All of this is so oblique in that you can't get found for fraud. I was okay and I get the money. I think this is a genius bill in that no one can get in trouble for it. When do we get to find out how well it's going? And what I mean by that, are we pushing the boundaries of the money we came up with? Is it an open-ended check? Can we talk about that on the other side of the break?
Sure.
All right, we'll do it. Representative Walter Hudson on the Al Travis Show.
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
You need a friend at the Capitol who knows how to get things done.
And you're in luck, because that's exactly who we are, your friends at the Capitol, and we deliver results.
At Momentum Advocacy, we bring decades of experience in lobbying, public affairs, and crisis communications.
From local nonprofits to national corporations, we help you move policy, manage your media, and make your voice heard.
We're not just seasoned pros, we're essential partners.
Momentum Advocacy, your friends at the Capitol. Learn more at momentum-advocacy.com.
The Al Travis Show, the last place you can go and hear all sides. Respectful, thoughtful, and grateful.
Got him, Representative Walter Hudson. Sometimes I don't talk so good. That's why I'm in the radio business. So here's my point. The paid family leave is so open-ended. My mother lives in Florida. There's 7 of us from Minnesota up here. She's feeling very anxious, so we are taking off to make sure that each one of us calls her at least every day, make sure she takes her meds. Okay. It's written so well, everybody can get paid because you're not lying. You're not committing fraud. You just told the government, and that's all good. My point is, it is so crazy. How do we know when we overrun our budget? And is there a budget on it?
Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yes, there is. Just like with all of these things, right? How many times have we seen, well, the program started off with an estimated budget of 2 to 3 million, and 1 year later, it's 150, right?
Exactly.
So it's a situation somewhat like that. There's what they thought it was going to cost. There's what they thought they were going to tax you. They actually have in the program the ability to elevate or adjust up the rate of taxation without further legislative review or approval. They can double it, I believe.
That's crazy.
Which they're going to do. They're going to have to do. Because you saw headlines at the beginning of the year, and I'm talking like the first week of January, talking about how so many people had applied to this thing that, we're on track to blow out the budget probably by the end of this month for this thing.
So will you be able to do something if the budget blows out? And here's the other one. The Midwest Gun Owners Caucus or whatever it was went after that omnibus bill, which had this in it. And the judge took that out and said, this isn't, omnibus bills aren't a Minnesota thing. If that were to fall apart and you all had to re-vote on all of them, is that the only chance we have of getting rid of this bad boy?
Well, I don't think it'll come to that because the court likes to be very, very restrained in their rulings. I haven't looked at that particular ruling, but I'm guessing it was very surgical in saying.
Oh, he said it was just these guys because they're the plaintiff in front of me. He didn't tear the whole thing down.
Yeah,
but if 16 others, I mean, how many other people were involved with that bill, right? I mean, this and that. If that were to fall, I guess, and they go back to single issues, would you have this? How do we fix this, I guess is my point. People are going to like being able to say, I call my mother once a day and I don't have to go to work now. People are going to like that.
Well, I'll tell you what they're not going to like. They're not going to like not getting paid because that's already happening anecdotally. I was at a chamber event locally in my district here this past week and was hearing stories about folks who put in for time off early last month and still haven't gotten paid. And their employers are up a creek without a paddle because it's like, well, what do I do? These people are, these are check-to-check people who were expecting their money and they're not getting it from the state. Should I pay them? And then what are going to be the legal implications of that? Right?
And hope you pay me back? No.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's the thing is this thing's going to fall apart under its own weight, just like a dozen other things the Democrats have done over the years. It's going to be a giant fiasco. It's going to make business even more untenable in the state than it already is. And, whether people like that, I guess we'll find out.
Okay, that'll be interesting. One last thing that the paper did today, which is talking about the silent part out loud, which I want to ask you about. A gal did an editorial piece about Representative Tim Murphy. She doesn't get any Republicans outstate that want to talk to her. Evidently, she even wrote it. 8% of the people don't think in politics, don't trust the paper, newspaper, TV, or radio. They don't trust them. So this guy said he'd take the interview. He did the interview with her. She said it went spankingly well. And then he let her know that, oh, by the way, I made a copy of this tape as well. And this made this woman a little miffed, if I'm going to use my own word. She was miffed. What do you think you're doing? I'm a journalist. And she already answered on a question. Only 8% trust them to begin with. Do you, and is it not a brilliant idea for all the folks in your line of work to carry a recorder, your phone with you and say, hey, because otherwise you can be quoted, misquoted, or whatever. Do you do that? It might be a great idea.
I don't. I've never really thought about it, but what I will tell you is that I've had incredible interviews with multiple members of the legacy media over the past 3 years since I've been in the legislature. And if those conversations had been on tape, I think they would have been really fascinating for the public to hear. And the resulting articles are, and this isn't like any sort of malice or, lack of integrity on the part of the reporters. Obviously, they're writing a story on a topic. They're going to have to pick and choose the quotes that that it makes sense within the context of what they're writing. That's just a natural part of the process. But there's all this leftover material, and I'm sure it's not just me. I'm sure it's everybody that they're talking to.
Yeah.
All this leftover material that was on the record that's probably paints a much more robust picture of what the story actually is that ends up on the cutting room floor. So to that end, I think it would be fascinating if the people being interviewed were keeping recordings of these interviews just so that they could repurpose them in other media to give a broader picture of what's happening in
I think that's a brilliant idea. NPR did one with me about ICE and what was going on probably a month ago. And I talked for a half hour, 40 minutes, 2 lines. Most benign stuff I said the whole day. I mean, they didn't do me wrong in any way, but I'm like, all that other stuff we talked about it? No, you're probably in great shape. I would cover your own backside if I would to do it because you're out there a lot. I got to fly. I'm out of time. I love having you on, Representative. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Take care.
He's Representative Walter Hudson on the Al Travis Show.